Sports Talk Nation. Welcome back once again. It's your host, the G-Man, as we continue with your 2016 fantasy preview on a team-by-team basis. Today we're going to talk about those Buffalo Bills. And I have to tell you, the Buffalo Bills were actually a surprising source of fantasy respectability last year, and I would expect more of the same. Tyrod Taylor really took control of that job. I think he's going to be a little pissed off this year that he didn't get an extension, but I do think he is a viable number two quarterback, probably a high-end number two. Now, granted, the challenge with a guy like Taylor is a lot of what he does has basis in his ability to run the ball. That's excellent when it happens. So if a guy gets 5 carries for 57 yards, that's like throwing for an extra 125 yards. But oftentimes, if a defense really decides to, they can stop a guy from running the ball. Unless your name's Russell Wilson or Cam Newton, then defenses can do nothing. But I like Taylor as a mid-level number two. From a running back perspective, based on all of their injuries and suspensions and stupidity behind him, I think LaShawn McCoy is poised, just like I thought he was last year, for an absolute monster year. Now, it didn't come to fruition last year, but at the very least, he's going to get carries because they don't really want to throw the ball, and they don't have much else behind him. So I wouldn't be surprised if his body holds up, and he had some hamstring problems last year, that he winds up with 300 carries this year. If he does, he's going to get double-digit touchdowns. He's going to wind up with 1,300 yards. He's going to be a valuable top-end number one running back, but he does come with some risk, obviously. If you get him, try to figure out who's going to be their backup and get the handcuff, because I do think he has the ability to break down a little bit later in the year. From a receiver standpoint, it's Sammy Watkins and everything else. Sammy Watkins was an absolute animal last year, developed a real cohesion with Tyrod Taylor, and I expect that to continue because I don't think, even if you double him, I think Sammy Watkins is going to find a way to get his passes because he's not just a speed guy, although he does have great speed. He catches the ball with his hands, goes across the middle a little bit, which in today's NFL, frankly, there's not that much of a fear factor because you don't have to worry about getting plunked. But I think Sammy Watkins is the total package. I think he's a top-end number one. I'd call him in the top 8, maybe top 10. As far as the other receivers, I wouldn't touch him with a 10-foot pole. No Marquise Goodwins, no Robert Woodses. Those guys are just not valuable to me. I don't even put them at the end of my roster. Charles Clay is a very low-end number 2 in a 12-team league. I'd say he's probably in that 20 to 25 range of tight ends. So if your team has to have 2, he's not a terrible one to fill in bye weeks, but I wouldn't go out of my way to go after him. Kickers are kickers, and the defense, I think they're going to be big play, right? I think, especially after his dad passed away this year, I think he's going to go back to his roots of high risk, high reward. So if your league values heavily sacks, interceptions, and turnovers and touchdowns. They all value touchdowns. I think that'll help tremendously. I think they might be a borderline number 1, but I do think they're going to give up a ton of points. So I think they may, get 3 sacks and an interception a game, but at the same time give up 28 points. So however your scoring is, I'd probably put them in the mid-level number 2 with a chance to be viable as a number 1 later in the year as they, come together as a unit. So with your 2016 fantasy preview of the Buffalo Bills, I'm your host, the G-Man, and I am out.